Hello, and for those of you just joining us, welcome to World Architecture Festival 2021. And I'm delighted to introduce to address us in this session MK Leon, who's Head of Sustainable Design, I think Director of Sustainable Design, at a large Hong Kong practice, Ronald Lewin Partners, who for the best part of 5 decades have produced a variety of buildings at many scales, but not inevitably super tall, and which have always tried to be, the phrase the practice use is human-centric. Now, one of our themes this year is the resetting of the city in the light of climate change and also, to an extent, our recent pandemic. So I'm delighted to invite MK to address us on the subjects of climate-ready design for high-density cities, of which Hong Kong is, of course, a major example. MK, over to you, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity for us to share on our attempt on climate-ready architecture, which we think is very important, especially in view of the era of climate change, climate emergency. And as we see, climate-ready architecture connects ethics and aesthetics, performance and experience, people and places all together. We are very interested to do our best to design better and more resilient places where we have a more positive and bigger environmental footprint, the handprint, the quality, and a smaller and more lean environmental footprint, which we call the loading. When we have more quality, less loading, bigger handprint, smaller footprint, we think, well, that is what we call climate ready. Our practice has been focused in China and Hong Kong for something like 40 to 50 years, 45 years, and covering a number of cities in Hong Kong and China. We are at the current 550 men strong, and we are still growing. As you can see, there are some of the awards we got from the industry, and we are well recognized in our regions for our efforts. And at the moment, we are ranked 58 globally. But I think we are the most proud of our work, which we hope we can walk the talk. As you may already well aware of the climate situations, climate change situations, we do strive to walk the talk. Our operations in Hong Kong and China has committed to ourselves and set the target in a science-based manner that we can help to limit the the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees for all our operations in different cities. And this also help us to learn about, how in this journey we may walk together with our clients and partners. We have been working on quite a wide range of different projects, from master planning, new constructions, existing building regenerations, to research. In fact, we are one of the rare company that engage ourselves heavily on research. And on the research front, actually we help to inform the government, the local government, to adopt some of the standard and practice in architecture. And I will share some of them in my talk here. Today, well, I would like to share a few things. Firstly, is about how our attempt on making our urban living space more sustainable in the context of high-density city, which we think, well, city is the future, and especially, well, cities are high density these days. We conduct a research on the outdoor living space, which could be modified and actually help to shape by building design in a number of aspects. First, about the building's permeability. Secondly, is about the greenery, the urban greenery we manage to preserve in the city. And last but not the least, with the compact density in the city, well, how buildings should create space between themselves, especially near the streets. And on that front, we look at local and overseas and the mainland examples, and come up with a standard and informed by performance-based study simulations, and advise the government about guidelines we put together called the Sustainable Building Design Guidelines. And these days in Hong Kong, if you manage to comply the recommendations in this Sustainable Design Guidelines, this is one of the prerequisites to enjoy an incentive for some extra gross floor area, which people are all very interested. On building permeabilities, we recognize the microclimate in a city could be very complex. It is even, well, more interesting to look at how the microclimate vary along the height of a building, along the height of a city. We call vertical microclimate. We come up with 3 zones, which we see for every more or less, okay, well, 60 meters. There is quite a substantial change for the vertical microclimate, and especially near the street, that 15 and 20 meter, well, we need to pay particular attention. So for each zone, we call pedestrian zone, the mid zone, and the upper zone. In a vertical city, we come up with a building permeability requirements that a certain high density design needs to comply with. So this is the, well, from a minimum of 20% up to a minimum of 33%, depending on development size, the facade length, and the building separations. And we, together with our partners and our clients, we have, well, we have studied the impact of this Sustainable Building Design Guidelines in Victoria Dockside, which is a mega-size development. And we carry out post-occupancy evaluations on how the Sustainable Building Design Guidelines, well, are actually making an impact in real life. After the project was completed 2 years ago, we carry out on-site measurements, and also we carry out survey with the users of the space, and also conduct NVMAP model to validate our assumptions during the design simulation stage, and comprehensively review the microclimate situations and the readings. What we find from the actual measurements and the environmental models, well, we find that most of the time, actually, the urban space surrounding Victoria Dockside actually are very comfortable within a comfortable range. This is particularly challenging for Hong Kong summer, which can get quite hot and humid. It is encouraging to see that no microclimate impact surrounding the neighborhoods are resulted by Victoria Dockside after the redevelopment. The redevelopment actually put in 40% extra development intensity as compared to the pre-development stage, which is quite encouraging. And that this is verified by our on-site measurements and model. Well, besides mega-size new buildings or new developments, we are also lucky to engage ourselves in urban regenerations of the city. I would like to share with you an example of the China Resources Building in Hong Kong. China Resources Building in Hong Kong actually, well, it is located right in the middle of the city, Wan Chai, well surrounded by buildings which are very close, packed very close together, and the buildings before the regenerations, the China Resources buildings, actually it has been there for something like 50 years. Yeah, and we managed to convince the clients that rather than demolishing the buildings, we can renovate the buildings with a smaller carbon footprint and disturbance to the users, and we managed to retain 97% of the structural element and remain 100% of the operations during the regeneration process. The whole buildings actually, the regenerations comprise of a facade replacement. We add another skin on top of the existing buildings and extend the building life cycle, we estimate, for at least 50 years to come. Besides the additional skin of the tower, for the podium, we also suggest and implement relocations of the podium masts by bringing some of the podium masts to take out some of the masts and create better permeability, opening up the podium and create a 24/7 open space with enhanced urban ventilations to the neighborhood. This is the double skin I talk about. We retain the existing envelope, and all the floor and the roof actually are retained it. And this high performance facade actually gives us a very good OTTV. We call in Hong Kong the overall thermal transfer values. It keeps the OTTV very low and help to actually conserve the energy for air conditioning. Last but not the least, I want to share with you our attempts for design for the climate generations. We see the rise of the new climate generations who want to make a stride to change their futures and reinvent the relationship between the earth and and human beings. And how will they want to live, work, and play differently in the future? One project we explore is this high vertical campus in Hong Kong, DI, and it is located quite close to the harbor. And in the site planning stage, we take extra efforts in how we can manipulate and articulate the architectural volumes so that it open up to the summer prevailing winds, and also create a shade for the student space within the campus, and also help to screen the noise around from the elevated railway link and also a highway. So the result is the twin tower with a lot of connections in between. This is the student plaza where the town and the gown meet, and it is on the first floor, and it is raised above the urban pollutions and exposed to very good urban wind. And as we go up, there are a lot of spaces that students can congregate and interact together in these shaded semi-outdoor areas. And they are located along the vertical campus on different levels near the key circulation nodes to promote circulations and to promote planned and unplanned encounters with a lot of greenings. And when we plan greeneries on skyscrapers, we have to aware the urban geometries of the building itself and its labor. And it is informed by a performance-based study at the start of the design stage, where we identify different zones, microclimatic zones on different levels of the campus, and advise the landscape planning. The wind environment, especially near the streets, are carefully studied. Make sure that there are no wind amplifications, and make sure that the wind is comfortable for thermal comfort. Most of the indoor space, over 80%, actually adopt daylight and have very good views towards the inside of the campus and outside of the campus. And with such an urban campus, 80% of the space, over 80% of the space, achieve an average daylight factor of 1%. Actually, this is quite an amazing performance. For the carbon footprint and the energy consumptions, we managed to achieve an impressive result, about 22% below the energy code in Hong Kong, and 25% reductions for the peak electricity demand as well, given the passive and the active strategies we have suggested. The space, well, when we think from building life cycles, we think it is crucial that they are adaptable spatially and structurally. The structural span is quite comfortable, from 9 meters up to 30 meters for the two towers. Make sure that the space are loose fit and multifunctional, well, for the purpose, for the use. And a lot of the classroom actually are provided with operable partitions that they can actually combine together and form a large space, a large studios. And the studios on the connecting floor actually can open up to form spaces of diverse configurations. To make sure we waste not, want not, even we make use of some of the waste. Well, in this case, carbon dioxide from adjacent occupied functional rooms. We channel the carbon dioxide from those space back to a tailored design greenhouse next to the learning common. So the plants there can enjoy a very high level of CO2 at around 800 ppm when the census tell the system that there are no occupants inside that greenhouse. But when the student and staff actually get into the greenhouse for education and teaching purpose, learning purpose, the system actually will adjust the carbon dioxide level automatically. Another project I would like to share with you is the CIC, Zero Carbon Park. This is the first zero carbon building, and at the moment, the only zero carbon building in Hong Kong. And we complete the buildings something like 9 years ago. It is right in the middle of the city, East Kowloon, and the context as well is very high density. And we look at the urban wind in the summer and the annual situations and design the building the building dispositions accordingly to capture the best wind of the site. By doing so, the space, the outdoor space in the middle of the site actually are having very good microclimate with good air ventilations, and the greenery surrounding the site actually helped to screen out the noise and the pollutions from the street as well. The interior of zero carbon building is open planned. The envelope is having window actuators, which the building management systems can advise whether the opening should be, the window opening should be or the size of the window opening. And also we provided besides the cross-ventilated layout, also the high volume, low speed fan, ceiling fan, to actually provide assisted ventilations before the air conditioning system kick in high summer. The strategies is the primary focus is on passive design and high performance active design, reducing the energy demand for something like 45% before we adopt the renewable, look at how we should do in the renewable systems. And the renewable energy system we have adopted is waste to energy systems, turning biofuel made from waste cooking oil to be used in our trigeneration systems, which gives out heat and electricity and cools for us. This is the game plan for the zero carbon park. We also consider the upfront carbon from the materials and the constructions, and how we can offset those upfront carbon together with the operational carbon by the on-site renewable. Coming to the last project I'm going to share today is Treehouse concept. It is a competition entry we managed to win in an international competition organized by the World Green Building Council and the Hong Kong Green Building Council on the theme of advancing net zero. The subject is about high-rise office buildings, how we may achieve or advance net zero for such a building type. The result is we call Treehouse. I would like to recap the design essence of our concept here in the following. First, we propose it is very crucial for the human nature connections and also microclimate, especially the vertical microclimate. We should the building should be actively response to that. The workplace should be adaptive and also activity based. to actually cater for the new working style, probably in the future. And also, we should focus on whole life carbon. First, on human nature reconnections. The building permeability of the design actually welcome the summer prevailing wind, as we notice from our site microclimate studies. And the prevailing wind comes from the east, from the harbor, and the open space in the common space in the buildings are naturally and cross ventilate and open up to that summer breeze on all levels. Greeneries are proposed at the doorsteps of the workplace on an atrium we call Sky Common, together with the urban woodland on the ground and also the sky gardens, 3 sky gardens along the tower and the roof garden. We managed to achieve a tree coverage of over 31% and overall green coverage of 137%. Vertical microclimate responsive. By that, actually, we look at the self-shading build form. The form cuts off 19.2% of the solar irradiance during the summertime. And on the facade, we plan building integrated facade. We make use of the theme perovskite theme technology, which is very light, and it gives us a very good renewable energy output and together with the roof canopy, it gives us something like over 1,500 megawatt hour per year of renewable energy. The integrated facade design comprised as I've mentioned, the building integrated overhang and tailor design daylight reflector together with the tilted low E glazing. Altogether combined, they give a very good solar shading and a very low thermal heat transfer through the envelope, and at the same time give us a very good daylight performance as demonstrated by our lighting studies for the spatial daylight autonomy and the annual sun exposure. The integrated passive cooling concept actually is one of the key features of the design. We propose a wind shaft with an aerodynamic shape inlet on the rooftop to collect and channel the cooler air from the rooftop, which is something like 2 degrees lower than that near the ground. And the wind shaft internally, it is cladded by hygroscopic terracotta cladding to passively manage the humidity of the air. And the air is channeled to the basement where it goes under an artificial wetland. And we designed a heat exchange mechanism to further cool the air by the artificial wetland. And the air eventually bring out by the solar chimney, where the solar chimney is cladded with BIPV again, and the waste heat from the BIPV and also the regenerations, the desiccant regenerations in the PAU, the primary air units, gives us a very good thermal buoyancy effect to actually bring the hot air out to the top of the buildings. Adaptive and activity-based. Post-pandemic, we understand people are making new choices on where they work and how they work and when they work. The activity-based concept actually allow the workers for a flexible working manner. They can come to the office when they need it, and the systems, actually the AI system suggests space which can match with their thermal preference in the office. And for different space, we deliberately create different thermal gradients where people have different preference may choose to work where they want. And landlords manage amenities and virtual desktop infrastructures also enable such a flexible working manner. So people may work in a flexible manner, meet their collaborators, and find a spot they like at their own will. And we adopt an adaptive comfort approach rather than just the notional VAV systems. We eventually suggest radiant panel together with ceiling fans systems where different thermal gradients are achieved to meet the diverse needs of the occupants. And these are some studies we carry out and demonstrated by the adaptive comfort approach. Actually, a very high satisfaction rate can actually be achieved rather than controlling the air temperature stringently in the conventional case. I would like to show you
We live in a
video.
generation of change. Global warming, pandemics, extreme weather have only inspired us to make change and create a resilient future by revisiting our roots. Nature, the one source that nurtures and gives us life. Nature wastes nothing, and in the perfect world, our existence not only complements it, but helps it thrive by achieving carbon positivity. The concept of a sacred union between man and nature also runs deep in ancient cultures. Like the Chinese word for wood celebrates our place on Earth. Perhaps now is the time for us to reset by building an eco-conscious, integrated system and lifestyle.
Welcome to the Treehouse. This is a new caliber of workplace that promotes carbon positivity through cutting-edge technology, design, and management. To regulate the temperature of the building naturally, self-shading facades for upper stories are in place to avoid solar heat. As a rooftop PV system helps generate renewable energy while doubling as a shade for the roof. Natural light is introduced in the building by large PV integrated overhangs with daylight reflectors. A wind catcher captures cool air 200 meters above ground and directs the air to artificial wetland to promote natural cooling. A BIPV cladded solar chimney is also in place to generate natural ventilation and reduce heat transferred to the building interior. Separate temperature and humidity control allow extremely high COP chiller and high temperature chilled water above dew point to power our climate sealing system. The phase change material thermal storage provides buffer to lower peak demand and to generate chilled water at night.
The treehouse is welcoming, and I feel like walking into nature when I come in. As the natural forms and greenery greet me, the space is airy and naturally lit with soft breeze coming from all directions. But beyond that, I'm inspired by its carbon-positive vision. I get rewarded with eco-tokens for my sustainable office wear every day. It motivates and empowers me to step up my game and do even more. The The virtual concierge also comes in handy as it automatically whisks me off to my assigned elevator when I check in on my phone. We don't come into the office every day like we used to before the pandemic, but every time I come in, I enjoy every moment with my colleagues. The office is completely versatile and supports on and off-premise work, especially with the Edge data center and virtual desktop system. Fixed desks are obsolete here, and we feel closer than ever as a team, working alongside one another at these mobile workstations. The office has been carved up in thermal zones to allow me to work at an optimum temperature based on my needs. The humidity in the office also mimics that of nature's for our best comfort. Our office is truly a seamless experience that takes into our account our habits and patterns, so the space can be preconditioned for any occasion. I come to the Sky Commons communal area for my lunchtime yoga class and occasional social events. The space feels open and warm thanks to the natural daylight and breeze through the adaptable building shutters. Self-sanitizing conferencing equipment are also available for hosting meetings here, and are usually on energy-saving mode until we use them. When I leave work, I want to know that I am making strides to change the future. I want to reinvent our relationship with the Earth. Working at the Treehouse is my first step to making positive change in the world and be the catalyst to the city's chain reaction for change.
The Treehouse is not only a place for work, it sows the seed of change in our minds, reminding us that only when a man and nature come together can we make change and create a sustainable future.
And the last part of my presentation is about the whole life carbon focus, which I think is very important when we
I need
consider.
to stop you there because we only have about 2 minutes left, and I would like to ask you one or two questions to an extremely
Sure.
interesting and full presentation. My question is it difficult to persuade your clients in Hong Kong to kind of go along with your environmental proposals? Because sometimes it's very tough, especially with commercial clients. How is it to introduce these ideas, especially to commercial clients?
It has never been easy, but things are changing. Hong Kong, following the footstep of China, actually we commit carbon neutrality, and we committed that we should achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. And this policy actually just come out recently, and most of our clients, especially the bigger ones and the institutional clients, they come to us and ask us, well, what are we suggesting? How can we achieve carbon neutrality? Policy drivers are very important.
And can you say how you see the distinction between embodied carbon and operational carbon? Because in many places the embodied carbon is now regarded as more important than operational. What is your view about that?
I think operational carbon is our first focus because we need to drive our consumption down. But if we manage to do that in a super low energy buildings or even a zero carbon buildings or zero carbon ready buildings, we have to take care about embodied carbon. We call it upfront carbon. And it can be as much as something like 1/3 or 40% of the whole life carbon footprint. So this is a very important and crucial element we cannot forget.
Well, I'm going to bring things to a close there. Earlier today, we heard a very interesting presentation about citywide energy strategies in Helsinki. Now we've focused in more with your presentation with some really intriguing examples of how you're approaching the kind of zero carbon targets in specific buildings and building types. And I thought it was very interesting the way in which, in particular, that you were using the potential of wind and breeze to act as a cooler, but also part of an integrated ventilation system, which must also, of course, be very significant for post-pandemic buildings. And my sense was that your award-winning building with the Green Building Council, in a sense, seemed to encapsulate the ideas that you've been developing in other projects, and in that sense you kind of brought them together in what must be a really quite an optimistic future from an energy and carbon point of view. MK, thank you very much for your time today, and good luck with your further researches. Thank you very much.
Thank you.